This broadcast is sponsored in part by Hendrick Automotive Group. Live from Charlotte, this is WBTV News on your side.
The world loses an iconic pastor and heaven gains an angel. Reverend Billy Graham dies at the age of 99.
But I know that God has sent me out as a warrior on the 5 continents to preach the gospel, and I must continue until he gives the signal that I'm to stop.
This morning, we're remembering the life of a man whose passion and conviction changed the lives of millions. Reverend Graham's legacy is known across the globe, but to many, he's America's pastor, with his mission starting right here in Charlotte.
It feels like the world's going to fall apart a little with him gone. I mean, you knew he was going to pass, but it was sort of like you thought he was going to live forever in some ways.
Those people he's touched throughout his life with his message are honoring him in his hometown. A memorial continues to grow outside the library that carries his name. Live team coverage this morning. Caroline Hicks and Micah Smith will join us from the Billy Graham Library, where Reverend Graham will be buried alongside his wife, Ruth. Welcome to WBTV News this morning, now at 5 o'clock here on this Thursday, February 22nd. Good to have you with us this morning.
We are honoring the life of Reverend Billy Graham.
The preacher died early yesterday morning, peacefully in his sleep at his family home in Montreat here in North Carolina. He was 99 years old, and we watched as a hearse and procession took the body of Billy Graham from his home to a funeral home in Asheville. Montreat holds a special place in the hearts of the Graham family. That's where Billy married his wife, Ruth.
And he will be buried beside her at the Billy Graham Library in West Charlotte. We're learning the full details on that funeral and what you can expect in the coming weeks. So let's go to WBTV's Micah Smith, who's live at the library this morning. And Micah, the public I know is very interested in how they can pay their respects. Tell us more.
Christine, Reverend Billy Graham will lie in repose here at the library from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Monday and Tuesday. The public is welcome to come. However, there won't be any public parking. They will be providing shuttles, though, for those who do come. Reverend Graham's funeral will be held here at the library on library grounds Friday, March 2nd at noon. Officials representing Graham say he personally approved details of that service some years ago. This will be an invite-only service held under a tent in honor of Reverend Graham's evangelist beginnings under a canvas cathedral. We talked to Mel Graham, Billy Graham's nephew, about the overall mood right now, both at the library and within the Graham family. Here's what he shared with us.
The mood will be one of, somber for our employees and people here, but at the same time, it's a celebration. We know where my uncle is. He's in heaven, and it's a happy time.
About 2,300 people are invited to next Friday's funeral, including President Donald Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, and all living former U.S. presidents. Reporting live, Micah Smith, WBTV, on your side.
Now, we're asking law enforcement about security plans ahead of the funeral, since some former presidents may attend. The State Highway Patrol says it was given notice about 2 weeks ago, and the agency will be in charge of the processional for the funeral. The Highway Patrol has also been in contact with CMPD, but plans are still being worked out. We're told out-of-county law enforcement will most likely assist. Graham was called the pastor to the presidents and spoke at public events with a number of them. Now, President Donald Trump's ordered all flags at the White House, public buildings, and other federal properties flown at half-staff in Graham's memory. We saw a few churches in Charlotte last night that had their flags at half-staff. President Trump called Graham a very special man and said he will be missed by all Christians and all religions.
You can pay your respects at a public memorial set up right now at the Billy Graham Training Center at the Cove in Asheville. It is open today from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association says there will be a private prayer service there for immediate family on Saturday morning.
Billy Graham, was born right here in Charlotte on November 7, 1918. He grew up on a dairy farm near what is now the intersection of Park Road and Woodlawn Road. Graham committed his life to serving Jesus Christ when he was just 15. He was a fiery speaker whose message reached millions across the world during his crusades. He was a Southern Baptist preacher who helped break down the walls of the Cold War. He fought apartheid in South Africa and was instrumental in ending segregation in the United States. But always humble, Graham said his mission was never about him.
You've come forward and are standing here, or wherever you are. You haven't come to me. You haven't come to the pastors that are here tonight. You've come to Christ. You've come to Jesus.
Billy Graham was put on Gallup's list of most admired people a record 56 times, 50 times consecutively. That's more than any other person in history.
It was just over 20 years ago that Billy Graham delivered his final crusade here in Charlotte. More than 70,000 people packed into what later became Bank of America Stadium for Graham's homecoming crusade.
He wants to give you purpose and meaning in your life. He wants to change you. You don't have to be a rat in a cage, as the Smashing Pumpkins sing. You can become a child of God tonight and be sure of it and leave here a different person.
Our very own Paul Cameron had the opportunity to personally meet with Reverend Graham and his wife right before that Charlotte crusade. This is a candid photo of them during that moment. Now, Billy Graham delivered his final message days before his 95th birthday in 2013. Over his years, Graham preached at 417 crusades in 185 countries and territories worldwide, reaching 84 million people face-to-face, millions more through television.
Many of the church leaders who fill the pulpits of churches across the Carolinas are examples of the inspiration that was Reverend Billy Graham. His influence is obvious among church leaders who say they were called to God through his teachings and principles. WBTV's Caroline Hicks joins us now live from the Billy Graham Library with what local pastors are saying about his passing. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, John. There are few groups of people who were touched more deeply by the teachings of Reverend Billy Graham than the people who teach themselves. Pastors across the Carolinas say they will never forget the wisdom he taught, and they hope to pass that on. For some, it's a simple encounter with him that they will hold dear to their hearts forever.
We sold him the Bible, and I just kind of watched him, and he was so gracious.
After selling Reverend Billy Graham a Bible, he decided to go to his revival that night. Now he's a reverend in Salisbury, working alongside another man who grew up watching Graham.
I remember being captivated by the music and the message itself and just his persona, his delivery.
You have to come by faith in Christ.
It was that conviction that crossed party lines and cultures.
Being part of that training under the Billy Graham ministry had a whole lot to do with fueling that fire.
Pastor Stacy King Cheney served as a counselor at Graham's crusade in 1992. Now she's deeply involved in Samaritan's Purse in Charlotte. She's one of many Charlotte leaders called to serve by his word.
I was very blessed to have private conversations with him, one-on-one conversations.
Pastor Loran Livingston hopes to embody Graham's humility when he preaches on Sundays. He says many pastors aspire to be like Graham, but no one could ever replace him.
God raised this man up. He does that, and he doesn't raise up duplicates.
These leaders say their lives were forever changed by Reverend Graham, and they now believe it is up to them to continue his legacy and share his message. Reporting live at the Billy Graham Library, Caroline Hicks, WBTV, on your side.
And WBTV has complete continuing coverage of the life of the Reverend Billy Graham on WBTV.com/Billy Graham. That's where you can hear more reaction to his death and read memories from people in our community who had their lives touched by him.
This broadcast is sponsored in part by Rtdnac Automotive Group. Live from Charlotte, this is WBTV News on your side.
Breaking news, a house crushed by a landslide in Watauga County, and tonight we know 2 people were found dead inside. And right now, there's a state of emergency in effect for the high country. Good evening and welcome. Lots going on this evening. I'm Molly Grantham.
I'm Paul Cameron. The region has been inundated with heavy rains for weeks, saturating the ground, not allowing it to dry. And that has triggered several mudslides and landslides all across the region. The stability of those soggy slopes remains the primary concern right now, especially after this home collapsed in Watauga County tonight.
Yeah, Paul, the heavy rains caused a hillside to give way, sending it right into a home. 2 people were inside, and again, they've been confirmed dead. WBTV's Steve Onisworch has been in the Heavenly Mountain community all night. He has the latest from investigators for you. He's on scene now. Steve?
Rescue teams have come from all over to try to help in this effort. 2 people trapped inside of a house when a massive mudslide comes down and crushes it. For several hours, crews dug through the splinters of what used to be a house. This picture shows all that was left of it and what those rescuers faced. It's difficult to do, says Claremont's Eric Jones, who has trained for such missions.
You do it slow, you don't want the rescuers hurt, and you won't get the other victim out if you can find them.
Teams worked in shifts, carefully digging and listening.
Maybe they're trapped, and we may be able to move some wood and stuff and put some shores up and get to them.
But that was not to be the case this time. The bodies of both victims were found and recovered. Names have not been released. Now, fire officials expect to be on the scene for some time, looking at what happened and trying to figure it all out. But of course, they can blame this one on Alberto and the rain and the mudslide that crushed that house. Near Boone, Steve Onisworch, WBTV on your side.
Now, the threat for more flooding is not over. More rain expected tonight and into tomorrow morning.
Chief Meteorologist Eric Thomas closely tracking this. He is live right now on the First Alert Weather Center with accurate details. What do you have, Eric?
Molly, they can't buy a break up that way. Let's get right to it. Your First Alert Doppler radar network. There it is. More clusters of heavy rain moving right back into the same area where they have the flood-prone areas, as well as these advisories and warnings moving off to the north at about 25 miles per hour. Now, we'll take you down to show you where that landslide was. That is Pine Ridge Road right here, where that catastrophe took place. Now, the nearest shower to it right now is actually right on top of Blowing Rock. Here you can see it as it rolls up 221. So that looks like that'll miss at least that community. The bigger area of activity still in the Watauga County area, again, just northwest of Boone. All of this is going to continue to move up Highway 421 along Mabel, and that'll get going up into Ashe County. Now, the flood warnings remain in effect across Watauga County, that until 12:30 in the morning. And don't forget, we have flood warnings as well, still ongoing. Well, actually, it looks like this has expired now, just about 30 minutes ago. Still want to point out, though, this flood advisory as well. So Avery County, you're not out of the woods yet either, although that looks like that'll expire here in just the next few minutes. All right, when we come up, it does look like we will finally get a break in the second half of the week, and hot temperatures on the way back. It's your First Alert forecast.
Eric, thank you. Some rivers and creeks are at record high water levels right now, and those who live along Carpenter's Cove at Lookout Shoals, they're used to high water, but tonight that lake is rising and could be lapping their homes by morning. WBTV's Amanda Foster is there live tonight. So, Amanda, are you seeing any serious flooding at this point?
Well, Paul, as you can see, it's really dark out here, but right here where you see that darkness, that is where the water is. And I don't know if you can tell, but this shed right here is a couple of inches below that water at this point. Now, I talked to a couple of these residents as they were preparing for this water to rise earlier tonight. They say they've seen this happen before, but maybe not to this level in some time. They say they haven't seen as much rain hit the mountains and then come through here in quite a while. Now, in this last week, Duke Energy says 6 inches of rain have fallen in the Catawba River Basin. It forces the water to flow through lakes like this one. We're seeing it across the area. Now, chairs in this area that were once on piers, they're nearly fully underwater. Those chain-linked fences there are making their way under as well. Now, people have been working to bring in those big items inside, like large campers and other ATVs and things like that. They say they're working together right now to make sure that there isn't too much damage. Now, for these residents, all that's left to do really at this point is wait.
So we accept this. Doesn't mean we like it, but we accept it. And we've done this enough. We kind of have our routine as to how we prepare for it, and just hope that it will be controlled enough from the fellow that controls the switch in Charlotte and the good Lord above, that he'll look after us and it won't get under our porch or anything any worse.
Well, that woman tells me her husband will likely sleep on the back porch tonight. A lot of these residents are up late tonight just keeping a tab on things and watching that water to see how close it does get to their homes. Live from Carpenter's Cove, Amanda Foster, WBTV News on your side.
Those pictures are so telling, the aerial shots. Amanda, thank you. Governor Roy Cooper plans to tour some of the hardest hit areas tomorrow, but tonight he has a warning for everyone in the state.
People in North Carolina need to continue to take these conditions seriously because they can prove deadly.
Several communities still trying to recover tonight from the heavy rain and floods. Governor Cooper will make stops in Polk, Rutherford, and McDowell counties.
Plus, you hear it and take a look at this video given to us by Hickory Nut Gorge Brewery. This is on Chimney Rock along the Broad River. High and swift water tore up part of this family's deck, but they tell us tonight they miraculously made it through. Now, here's a picture they sent us today. You see the before and the after? Quite a scene of difference, isn't it? You see how high the water is on the right side and what it has fallen to today. Molly?
Well, Paul, this is what it looks like in Morganton tonight. 2 roads are closed because of the flooding. At Bost Road, water was still pretty deep this evening. The road is impassable, but some people were spotted trying to pass through barriers that were there. Up on Spainhauer Road, tow trucks had to help a minivan that was stuck in the water. You see that. And if you're in this area, it's obvious when you see the pictures. Stay clear. Neighbors say the roads are not in good shape underneath that water. And serious problems in McDowell County as well. Many roads still closed at this hour. Rivers jumped their banks. Hillsides started falling. People were forced to evacuate. Crews say conditions have improved and those people have been allowed back home. Some told us this is the worst flooding they've seen.
And Molly, some sad news out of Avery County. Firefighters found the body of a young man at Elk Rivers Falls who's believed to have slipped off a rock at the bottom of the falls on Friday. He's identified as 26-year-old Thomas McCardle Jr. from Ohio. He was in town for a wedding. That's according to the sheriff's office. Officials believe the torrential rains may have contributed to the body surfacing. His mother thanks a group of Appalachian State students who risked their lives by forming a human chain to try to save him.
Be sure to stay with WBTV on air and online as we continue to follow this aftermath in the high country. Western North Carolina, as you've seen, has really been hit. We're also going to have a crew in Watauga County tomorrow for that house collapse.
This broadcast is sponsored in part by Rtdnac Automotive Group. Live from Charlotte, this is WBTV News on your side.
This morning, we're learning the names of all 17 people killed in a Florida school massacre. Students of that school speaking out about the friends and teachers who sacrificed their lives to save fellow classmates.
Basically saved my life. If it wasn't for him, I might not be here today.
I didn't get to say goodbye to one of my best friends, but I have to think about what I'm going to wear to his funeral now.
As they remember the lives lost too soon, a community in mourning has a message for the nation.
If there's anything that needs to be said right now, it's that when you shut this TV off, you have to go home and tell every single person you know you love them, because you never know when your last time is going to be.
Good morning. Welcome to WBTV News this morning here at 5 o'clock now on this Friday, February 16th.
Suspected gunman in the Florida school shooting is being held without bond. 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz faces 17 charges of premeditated murder. He's accused of shooting and killing 17 at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Deputies say he confessed to details of the shooting. There are signs the shooting could have been worse. A state senator says authorities told him it appeared Cruz tried to fire out of the school's third-floor windows at students as they were fleeing, but the windows didn't shatter.
All 17 victims have been identified, 14 students and 3 staff members, among them teachers, a football coach, and young, fresh-faced students. Their names were read out at a vigil in their honor last night.
Carmen Centrum, Meadow Pollock, Peter Wing, Nicholas Dort, Mr. Christopher Hickson, Mr. Aaron Feist, Luke Oyer, Elena Petty, Jamie Guttenberg, Martin Duque, Alyssa Al-Hadef, Helena Ramsey, Mr. Scott Beagle, Joaquin Oliver, Kara Logren, Gina Montalto, and Alexander Schachter.
And we are learning more about some of those victims this morning. Many of the students killed were just 14 years old, like Alana Petty, who volunteered in her community after Hurricane Irene hit. And teacher Scott Beagle was shot as he tried to usher students into his classroom to protect them. His students are remembering him for his heroism.